Justin, welcome to the show. And I want to ask you the banter question of the day, which is, I just found out that you were born in my now resident, like the town I'm a resident in. What do you remember of Novato, California from your first 5 years of life?
Oh, man. I remember going to Taco Bell with my mom while she was pregnant with my little brother. I believe enchiladas was the food of choice back then. I don't even think they have that anymore.
That was a menu item at Taco Bell?
And also my dad's buddy lived way up on this hill, and they used to fly kites like miles out into the wind. I mean, they had crazy amounts of kite string. You could barely see these things off in the distance.
Oh, that's right.
So that's about all I remember from growing up in Nevada until I was 5.
I love it. Love it. Well, my daughter's 5 right now. And if she was transplanted away from Novato, and then I asked her when she was your 30, how
43.
43.
Yeah.
If I asked her when she was 43 what she would remember, I would be so curious to like, Joey, what do you remember of Novato? She'd be like, I remember going to the pool at the country club, and I remember eating lots of French fries everywhere we went. We've scoped out all the French fry places.
I was going to say, I imagine your kids won't think of Taco Bell as one of their earliest memories.
I don't even think there is a Taco Bell in Marin County anymore. I think it's
been banned.
Yeah. There is a Jack in the Box right down the street from us, but we have not taken the girls there. We did give them their first McDonald's experience about a month ago, which they were excited about. They're like, we want to go to McDonald's. I'm like, how do you even know about McDonald's? So just for context, anyone listening, it is about 100 degrees up here. We just worked out. We're trying to look professional on camera. If you're watching this and we're sweating and we're wiping our brow like constantly, I have a pink towel. Justin's going with the white. That's a good choice.
I'm not cool enough to do pink, dude.
I'm also accessorizing with like 4 different pink things on my body right now. So, but Justin, we go back almost 15 years, probably 15 years to be exact. And I think it was this month. You used to host the East Sac Throwdown in like the fall, correct?
Yep.
So it's the fall, 2009, I think was my first ever competition. And it was at your gym.
Yeah.
I was nervous as hell. Tell us a little bit about where our paths crossed and kind of your background in the fitness space.
Let's see. Ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with bodybuilding. I always looked at those guys. I wanted to look like a superhero when I was young. And luckily for me, both my dad and my stepfather both had some fitness equipment at home. And so I got exposed to it pretty early on, working out in the garage with barbells and dumbbells. And I remember one of my, first big influences was Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding.
Ooh, man, you threw in the modern. No, most people don't even say that part of the title.
Oh, dude, I read that book cover to cover.
It's a good book.
It's like the Bible of bodybuilding.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, if anybody's interested in bodybuilding, you should definitely have that in your collection.
Yes.
So about 12 years old, I was, pumping iron here and there. By 15 years old, in the high school weight room, showing my buddies how to do it. And, I just always was in love with training and sports and teaching people, even from a young age, whatever I knew, I wanted to share it. And went to college at Davis and studied exercise science, which, my dad wasn't super happy about that when I told him. He said, "What? Are we allowed to cuss on this show? Is this a family show?" He literally said, "What the fuck are you going to be, a PE teacher when you grow up?"
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, I don't really know, but this is what I want to spend my time learning about. And I didn't really know what I would do with it. But out of college, became a personal trainer, bounced around a couple different places. I started a boot camp business in the local parks.
Okay.
That was really successful. The results were great. It was a fun program to run. That was my first business. And shortly after that, in 2007, I started doing CrossFit. I did CrossFit at first to prove it wrong. I'd see the workouts and I just thought it was silly and ridiculous. And there were a couple people that just wouldn't leave me alone about it. They're like, no, you need to do this. You need to do this. And so I said, all right, well, I'm going to do 30 days of CrossFit. And my plan was to prove them wrong, to come out of 30 days of it and be less muscular and less fit and less able because I just did these really simple workouts that I saw on CrossFit.com. And when I first started doing it, I enjoyed the competitive nature of it. So I enjoyed being able to go online and look up somebody else's time and how fast can I do this? And
did you have a mark that you were like shooting for, like a person, like a handle that you were like, I'm going after Spieler, I'm going after somebody?
Well, at first I didn't really know who was who. So I'd kind of open up the comments and look for the top times.
Yes.
And I was a little bit of a cheater. I mean, I followed CrossFit.com for 30 days, but I would look at certain workouts like, oh, I could do this one. And that's the one I'd be scouring the comment section to see, you know, what the times were. And some of those I actually did okay on right off the bat. And then there were a lot of things like I couldn't Olympic lift at all. I couldn't front rack a barbell. I couldn't do an overhead squat. I couldn't really, but I'm hard headed. So I worked on all those things daily and developed them. But what happened with me in CrossFit was I was drawn to the competitive side of it. And I immediately opened up the CrossFit Journal and started reading all the way back from when it started, what is fitness and who is fit.
Yeah.
I found that article to be very profound.
Okay.
Because I loved the fitness argument. I loved arguing with all these triathletes that were so proud of themselves for running so far and riding their bike so far. But in the weight room, I always knew, I'm like, these guys can't really do anything. Mm-hmm. They, you know, it's impressive to go run a marathon and be fast at it. Don't get me wrong. But if that's all you could do, I'm not really that impressed.
Sure.
And so I kind of had argued with all these people what fitness was, but I didn't really have a working model. And when I read Glassman's idea of, you know, work times distance divided by time and how many different ways can you apply that and who's the best at the most thing, I'm like, that's it. This is genius. I can't believe that I went to college and studied this and I had to read an article from somebody that doesn't even have a degree that explained it better than ever.
Who doesn't even look fit himself.
Who
has a limp, who has all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the dude, he was a genius. You know, he definitely revolutionized the training industry. Whether or not people want to give him credit for that, it's absolutely a fact.
Yes.
You know,
I'm in that
So
camp.
30 days into CrossFit, coming from not a competitive bodybuilding style of, I wasn't competing, but I was training bro splits, let's call them, very much. Because aesthetics was, after sports was over, it was just like, how good can I look?
Sure.
That's all I cared about really in the gym. And I knew that's why people were paying me too, you know? Yeah, sure, getting your resting heart rate down and your blood pressure and this and that is all good. But the reason this industry really exists is vanity. And I think people should just admit that versus fighting it. I think everything else that you get out of it is kind of a side bonus, to be honest with you.
Well, it has to start, right? It has to start somewhere for people. And because of the nature of the industry and what people feel like they want to have, they connect to aesthetics and then they get these other ancillary side benefits and they're like, oh, that feels good too. And perhaps it grows from there, right?
The other stuff is great.
Yeah.
You know, but I think if you took away looking good, I don't know how many people would keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe some would. I mean, I would, at this point, if you took that away from me, I'd keep doing it because I know how much it benefits your life. But, you know, at 12 years old, I knew I wanted to look like a beast. And that's what got me into this.
Yeah.
You know?
So then you finish 30 days and you're bought into the methodology. So you open up a CrossFit gym.
So I knew at that point that CrossFit was going to sweep the industry. Mm-hmm. I just knew it. You know, I knew I didn't bench press for 30 days. I got back on a bench and my bench was like 30 pounds up. Like, whoa. How does that happen?
Yeah.
From doing ring dips and from doing a bunch of overhead presses till failure in the middle of a Metcon. And I just knew there was a huge benefit. I used to run before that. I went out and ran like my 3-mile loop and I was faster after not doing, you know, a 5K type run in a month.
Yeah.
I literally improved at almost every single thing that I used to do, not doing it for a month, just doing CrossFit.
Wow.
And right then is when I knew, I'm like, I need to figure out how to train people this way, but my people are 40 and 50 years old. So they can't just do .com. Right. You know, for those of you who don't know, .com is like, that was the workout of the day on CrossFit.com. And it was, as Glassman said, it was designed to exceed the capacities of the world's fittest athletes. Yes. So literally he said, this is so hard, nobody can do it.
Yeah, it delivered on that in a lot of ways, for sure. For even the world-class athletes, it raised the bar of what it meant to be able to practice multiple different disciplines and execute them. Not just like I'm good at a bunch of things, but you became like almost great and exceptional at a lot of things at once, which really broke the paradigm, I think, for how people looked at concurrent training models, doing different things all at the same time. But you are so. We have so many similarities, like in our story from as far back as like the thing your dad said to you when you were like going to, like I had the same thing. I dropped out of medical school. My dad's like, well, what are you going to do? Like personal training? And I was like, sort of kind of a similar vibe. And then also getting kind of bought into CrossFit early days. I think I read the journal in 2008, like you did, just went deep into it. And it was like
cover to cover.
Totally. And then, it was a couple more years until I was in the community and I owned my own gym, but then we both kind of found ourselves in gyms. But the thing that I'm curious about, and I think where we have at this modern time day, like so much in common, is that many people had their first experience with great fitness through CrossFit. We both got into great shape and had a deep appreciation for fitness before CrossFit. We knew that bodybuilding worked. We knew that lifting weights was good. We knew that boot camps were fun and created good results. And then the CrossFit thing kind of, it was an evolution for us. It wasn't our starting point.
Right.
And so with that in mind, I'm curious to know over the years, have you gone back to some of the things that you did prior to CrossFit and been like, hey, there were some things that I used to do that were great that I kind of got away from in our drink the Kool-Aid phase, which we all went through, especially during the competitive years. How have you kind of married all of that more today with your client experience and your own experience through training?
Yeah, great question. First off, in opening a CrossFit gym, I took a lot of that knowledge. And having been working with aging, clientele, I knew that just launching into CrossFit, like as you see it, wasn't going to work well. Mm-hmm. These people had knee problems and back problems and shoulder problems. So we originally, our gym model was like, how can we apply this idea of constantly varied functional movement towards aging bodies and do so successfully? Because our clientele in our neighborhoods, a little more upper class, middle to upper class, East Sacramento. They're aging professionals. Some of them were the high school athlete star who's got the bad knee from those days, and some of them never did a thing in their life. Yeah. So, we had to manipulate that program to a level that made sense for them. A lot of different evolutions of that until we kind of settled on what we do now. If I had to describe that, there is an emphasis on strength training. We'll get more into that in a little bit. And there is less of an emphasis on the nuance that is CrossFit competition. Yeah. So when I look around at CrossFit, I think a lot of people follow what they see on CrossFit.com, and they follow what the sport of CrossFit looks like. And maybe they're doing a good job of scaling those things to the average gym member. Yes. But on average, I don't think they do a great job of that. And I think it's even better to create a mixed modality, high intensity strength and conditioning program that's actually aimed at those people's abilities and skill levels and doesn't care about what the sport looks like. Yeah. So the way I've said it over the years, and maybe tell me if this resonates with you, it's like Glassman proposed that we program for the most elite athletes in the world and then we scale back. Yes. And I've kind of been like, well, why don't we program for the masses and then we have infinite ways to scale it up if we need to. But if we focus on that person, like the average consumer who is aging, maybe has joint issues, who doesn't have 30 hours a week to dedicate to, their fitness. When he said that it was designed to exceed the capacities of the world's fittest athlete, I think it was about the third time I heard him say that I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Why would you do that? Why would you literally just said it's so hard, nobody can do it. And then watching the evolution of the games, I started to understand. I'm like, if they didn't push that envelope so far, then we wouldn't really know where the limit of human potential is. True. But the average person coming into a CrossFit gym isn't trying to find the limit of human potential. Yes. They're trying to optimize themselves, right? So they're not going to go to the games 6 times like Marcus Philly. That's not their goal. Right. They want to look good. They want to live longer. They want to be strong and play with their kids, get compliments from their family and their friends, etc.
I'm going to take a quick tangent because I want to hear your answer to this question. I imagine you've gotten this question more times than you can count. Someone comes in, they want to get in shape. They're coming to you. Justin, I want to get in shape, but I don't want to look like you. I don't need
liar.
That, right? Like something like that, something to that effect. What do you say to somebody who's like, yeah, but I want to build some muscle, but I don't need to get all jacked like you?
I think my answer to that question is that, we're here to optimize you and your life. And if somebody really wants to get deep into that conversation with me, what I'm going to tell them is that, when people say, oh, I don't want to look like this person who's super jacked or that person, I think what's really happening there is it's an ego protection mechanism. I think that they don't have a belief in themselves that they can do that. And so by opening up with saying, I don't want to look like you, I think they're protecting their own ego from feeling like they couldn't do what I do or what you do.
Yeah.
So if they really want to get into the conversation, I'll have that conversation with them.
Wow. Yeah, man, I was kind of coming at that with like in jest, and like I often, I've gone through a lot of different variations of that where I'm like trying to explain to them like, oh, don't worry, like you're not gonna like just suddenly have traps the size of Ronnie Coleman or or like, hey, like we don't have to do, but or I get playful with them. I'm like, don't worry, like even if you try, you probably won't. Like it's hard to do, but you are absolutely hitting on like the core emotion there, which is like fear of not being enough to do the thing that a lot of people are doing. It's just like, I want to make a good living, but I don't need to be a millionaire. It's like, well, because that might be really scary.
Yeah, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like that's hard to get to, and you have a greater likelihood of failing than succeeding if you set your goal super far away. And I love that what you said, just like we're here to optimize you, and optimizing anybody, I'm sure you feel this, but it's like, well, what's the next, baby step to get you, moving in the right direction?
Yeah. I mean, part of the message that I want to put out is there really isn't a limit other than what you put on yourself. Sure, we have life circumstances and we have schedules and, tendencies and whatever, but whatever somebody decides to achieve and whatever they put towards that, they can do it.
Yes.
So I'm not going to push somebody too far that comes in and says they don't want to look like me, but I'm going to push them a little.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I hear more often, we have some women in the gym that are super, super fit, and it's the other women saying, "Oh, I don't want to look like her," and I'm like, "Why not? Yeah. She looks great. I think you do want to look like her. I just think you haven't gotten there in terms of believing in yourself, and they know it's hard, But fitness and nutrition, it's a how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So you start somewhere and you do a little more, and along the way you make decisions about, do I want to do more? Do I want to achieve more?
Yeah.
But ultimately everyone is going to limit themselves with their own beliefs and, with where they put their own priorities. You don't have special genetics and I don't have special genetics. All that's different with us is that we do it day in and day out. We choose. Well, and
fortunately we love to do it, and we found a love for it early on. And, it's like, I heard somebody say this recently. It was Alex Hormozy. He was like, people ask me like, how am I so disciplined? I'm like, I'm not. I just do the thing I love to do, and that's what keeps me doing it every single day. It's like, if you do something you hate, then you're not going to be disciplined at it because you're going to have so much friction. And so we're here to get people to enjoy what they're doing in the gym and give them enough of a challenge where it doesn't take them outside of that, some element of joy, where it's like if you push them so hard and you make them do CrossFit.com with a bias towards games level skills in Metcons every day that are extremely hard, you're going to just be hitting them with that frustration point of like, man, this sucks. Like, I'm tired of this. Like, I suck at this. And then they never make those baby steps. Like they don't take one bite at a time. They're trying to bite off way more than they can chew. And then they churn out, and we don't get a chance to really help them become the optimized version of themselves.
Totally. You got to meet people where they're at. And if you can lead them a little bit further than that, great. And if you can't, it's like, hey, I'm glad you're here doing something good for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Because you're better off than you were before you started doing this.
So if we can jump into sort of like maybe, we got some time left in the pod, but I want to hear you dive into a little bit more specifics of how you think about programming for your clients and your gym, yourself. You have a philosophy that resonates a lot with me and with functional bodybuilding. So how do you think about that?
Well, obviously coming from the bro splits wrestling was a big influence in my life in terms of just building a massive conditioning base and just developing that mindset of like, I don't really care how much this hurts. I'm here to win. And then after that was over, it was bodybuilding to look good. And in early days of training, I had a lot of complaints, especially from the women, because they didn't want to build muscle. But what I knew was that, building muscle builds your metabolism. So it wasn't going to be effective for me to just try to burn calories with them. They're just going to go home and eat more. And it's not really going to work. So I was really hard-headed on making sure that my clients were building strength and muscle. Mm-hmm. And CrossFit came along and I sort of drank the Kool-Aid, and I was always trying to figure out my own version of it that was better and trying to apply it to the aging people that were my clientele. And I would say through that process, what happened, I didn't expect this to happen, but being an early CrossFit Games competitor in 2008 and, doing pretty well, as the sport grew, as you know, it became like a monster competition. Like the dudes and the women that were coming out there were so strong, and the sport is really more biased towards strength than it is, I think, all around conditioning. Not necessarily at the games. They really do challenge the games athletes at the top level on all levels, but I think to get to the games, you just have to be so strong. And as the monsters came in, my business partner Travis Cassidy and I were like, dude, we can't keep up with the level of strength that these guys are putting out, and we were strong guys. What are we going to do? And that's where Mark Bell came into my life. We realized that right in Sacramento, in our hometown, was one of the most world-class powerlifters of all time. And so I reached out to him and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to just see how strong I could get. And so I asked him if he'd train us, do a seminar at our gym. He did that. We trained with him for years. And I remember all the CrossFit competitors, when I'd go out, they were all at the Weekend Warrior competition, and I'm on the sideline watching. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm powerlifting over at Super Training. They're like, what? Are you doing conditioning? I'm like, no, not really. Just trying to get strong. Oh, dude, you're not going to make it back in shape in time for the Open and regionals. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. It worked really well. My Olympic lifts went up. What I realized in powerlifting was that there was longevity in that style of training, where Olympic lifting at a competitive level doesn't really have longevity. So I'd go to Olympic lifting competitions. I did those, and there's like nobody old there. Maybe one or two guys, and they point at their elbows to remind the judges that their elbows don't straighten on their lockouts because they're just banged up. In powerlifting, we'd go to a meet and there's tons of old guys, 50s, 60s, strong as can be, getting PRs, lifetime PRs in their 60s on a deadlift, jumping up and down. And I'm like, man, my body feels great doing this. Like, I want to switch my gym to more of a powerlifting focus and use Olympic lifts for the benefit of the mobility, speed, coordination, agility, accuracy, all that stuff that has benefit from Olympic lifting, but you don't have to snatch into a squat to get that. And you don't have to become a master. You can just work on overhead squats. You can work on, basics of those movements. And for the average people, you get most of the benefit versus like CrossFit hammers on Olympic lifting. It's Olympic lifting all the time, right? And it's Olympic lifting in the Metcons for 30 or 50 reps while you're dying, and people's form is falling apart. And it's just, it's just a recipe for building poor movement patterns and creating injuries. So we separated barbells almost entirely out of conditioning. There's some exercises that I think people do well, like people can do thrusters pretty well or push presses. So those are sometimes in conditioning, but we're not doing Olympic lifting and conditioning except for the, competitive level. We have a competitive level program at our gym to challenge those people too. If they're going to go do a sport, they got to practice the sport. So there's only really a few people that want to train at that level at our gym, where it's like muscle ups and walk on your hands and stuff like that. So we entertain them too, but, we use powerlifting as the backbone of our gym's program to build strength. It's much more accessible. It's much easier to learn. I can put a much greater load on somebody's body sooner and build a lot more strength than the Olympic lifting emphasis that I see widespread in CrossFit.
Yeah.
So,
I love that point because it took me years to figure that out too, which was we were going to try and focus so much on these higher skill lifts, and these clients and these individuals have 60 minutes at best in their day to come in and build strength and build muscle. And if half of that class is going to be dedicated to conditioning, then we really only have 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week to build muscle. And if I'm spending 20 minutes of that teaching them skills with a PVC pipe, like, they're not under resistance. They're not actually.
Totally.
And we really want to bias strength and muscle mass for health, longevity, metabolism, and ultimately what people are looking for, which is like a good aesthetic. And so, yeah, why are we spending all this time doing these things that don't optimize for those characteristics when we could be powerlifting, or as I've kind of leaned into it more, bodybuilding? It's like, let's do some bodybuilding and some powerlifting. Let's make that 40 minutes of your hour. Yep. And then save the rest for the sweat, the fun, and something that just keeps your heart healthy and capable.
Totally. So at my gym, we do strength every day. Mm-hmm. We rotate through the movements in a way that makes sense. It's not always a barbell. So, it may center around squat, deadlift, and bench press. We'll sprinkle in some power cleans or maybe a hang squat clean here and there. And we do the drills and we do all that stuff when we do it. And then some days it's like more accessory and core work, so that's another thing you don't really see in a lot of CrossFit gyms is, sitting there doing 1-arm dumbbell rows, followed by curls, followed by shoulder press, and then, maybe something that's midsection specific, and all that stuff really fits into the picture really, really well. Yeah. And it gives your body a break. Like if I just deadlifted, on Monday, and then we bench pressed heavy and torched your upper body on Tuesday, maybe I don't want a barbell on Wednesday, but we still can work on strength in productive ways that allows the body to recover from what we already did and allows us to still work on strength on parts of our body that are ready to work, right? Because I think that's another thing that goes on in CrossFit is I think a lot of coaches and gym owners don't really understand how fatigue stacks up in the body, and they're just trying to make hard workouts.
Exactly.
And then what happens is people end up with tendonitis.
Right.
And their back hurts and this hurts because nobody's really critically thinking about how that fatigue stacked up and what we're going to do on Wednesday.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges I always faced, and I think group fitness, instructors or facility owners face, is that you don't have control over how frequently people are coming.
Totally.
And how they're going to incorporate your program. And so, you have the person that's coming 2 days a week, and they want to get that buzz and they want to feel like they worked really hard. And so if you give them, if they show up on the day that's maybe lower intensity, more bodybuilding focused, more accessory focused, they're kind of like, I wish I was here on the hard day. And a lot of gym owners get pulled into like, okay, I got to give something each day that rings their bell because I don't want anybody to be happy one day at a time. And that creates an issue looking at the long-term, progression of athletes, right? Or just general.
So there's definitely I have had this argument so many times. There's definitely a compromise of group fitness training, right? Yeah. Like I'm going to make a one-size-fits-all workout, and hopefully we adjust it well for you and you and you.
Yes.
But ideally, I would have like workout A, B, C, D, and you would do them in that order, right? Yeah. But some people come to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday like clockwork. Some people get there just randomly whenever they can.
Yeah.
Some people go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They rest on Thursday. They go on Friday and Saturday. So there are different patterns that exist. So the way I approach that is I don't have like a certain day that's a certain thing. I train that way. Mm-hmm. Monday is leg day. Tuesday is upper body with conditioning and so on. And I have a weekly plan that I always follow.
Yes.
I would love to train everybody that way, but the truth is they're not going to be there like clockwork the way that you and I train. So what I do in our gym is I rotate the stimuli different days a week, sort of in the right amount that I want people getting those things. Mm-hmm. And that way, whatever pattern they're following, they're getting sort of an even mixture of the things that I want them working on. We do strength and we do conditioning every day. And I really think about the interactions of each day. So whatever pattern people are following, they're not getting overwhelmed if they showed up 3 days in a row. We've rotated through different energy systems, different body parts in a way that makes sense. And if they're showing up randomly, they're still getting a pretty good even mixture of those kind of things. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's super difficult. It is one of the hardest parts of coaching group fitness. And I think what I'm taking away from the conversation that we've had so far as we come up on 30 is that, we had a similar background coming in. We came to coaching people in, fitness before, in CrossFit, and then kind of not like post, because you still coach CrossFit, but kind of the post rise of CrossFit. And we've encountered a lot of the same problems, and we have critically thought about solutions to them for the customer. And we've arrived at some similar, solutions. And it's like, well, how do you solve this problem of people coming with, varying frequencies and, without the same schedule? Because like you said, you train a particular way because it's probably the most effective generally for most people is to follow some structure that is repetitive to a certain degree. Okay, how do I deliver that to somebody who's coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then next week they come Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the next week we've kind of worked on that, and there's no perfect answer to it. It's you do the best you can because you care about the clients.
Yeah.
And we keep trying to learn. And if your coach or your gym that you go to out there is not making an effort to solve those problems critically with your best interest in mind, then I would encourage anybody listening to be like, okay, let me find somebody who is, right? Because there's good coaches out there who are running programs that are maybe not the perfect solution for everybody, but they're doing it in the best way possible. And then the trade-off is that people are coming and working out in groups, which is massively important for relationships and
That's what I was going to say. There is a huge trade-off to group training, right?
Yeah.
So are we compromising on having the perfect program? Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But the community aspect of working out with people can't be understated.
Yeah.
So for your average person that we're talking about that wants to go to a gym and get in shape, and they're, they said they don't want to look like you, even though I think they do.
Yeah.
That community and that structure of maybe it's a little bit more random than would be ideal for their strength and their fitness.
Yeah.
It can't be understated. The intensity and the drive and the camaraderie and they want to come back, versus if we just put them on our program and they had to do it sort of in the corner on their own without people, they're maybe not motivated enough to keep doing that.
Yeah.
All
right. This might be a hard one to answer.
Let's go.
It's kind of our last one, but if you had to leave the audience or the listener with sort of like training, here's my number one, like probably the most important thing for somebody who's in the beginning, intermediate phase of their training. Like, what would you want them to leave this conversation thinking, that's what I should be really focused on as my number one when it comes to training?
I think building muscle mass and strength is the absolute cornerstone of a good program. Mm-hmm. And depending on the level of resources that you have, how do you approach that? If you have none, there are YouTube videos where you can learn to do push-ups on, chairs or on your couch or whatever, but you need to push on things. You need to pull on things. You need to hinge at your hip. You need to squat and lunge. And you can literally start in your living room or in your garage simply with that. And at some point, you're going to need to advance that, so what comes next? Do you go to a gym and do you learn bodybuilding? Do you learn how to do bro splits and work on this muscle group and that muscle group? Do you go to a weightlifting gym or a CrossFit gym or something like that and actually, learn to move some of these higher skill level objects, kettlebells and barbells? I think that's a great place to go. I don't necessarily recommend people just go down to their local CrossFit gym or CrossFit style gym because I don't really know where I'm sending somebody at that point. So you do need to look around and ask yourself, do these people seem like they know what they're talking about? Are they passionate about teaching people strength, And I think the next most important thing after strength training is people need to get their heart rates near maximums for short amounts of time. You have to increase your metabolic engine. You have to increase your work capacity. So I think the top thing is strength training. I think the next thing is increasing that metabolic capacity, your work capacity.
Beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree on the strength and muscle mass, point, and it's a big thing we come back to over and over again. Justin, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
I'd say Instagram is going to be the best avenue. The nutrition program I recently started is called the Protein RX, the Protein Prescription. So go follow that. Again, it's just at the Protein RX on Instagram. You'll find links to my gym on there too, at Aquila Fitness. We publish our weekly programs on there.
Cool.
Those programs are oriented towards the equipment and the coaching and everything that is at our gym.
Yeah.
But definitely anyone's welcome to reach out to me through those platforms if you have questions on how to train, or if you're looking for a place to train. I'm in Sacramento.
Yeah.
I don't do remote training at this point, but at some point that's going to be added to the program as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us, and check back next week because we are going to do a part 2 where we're going to dive into nutrition. So thanks for listening.